As an introduction, if I may say so, if I go back 30 years, I used to be a colonel in the special branch of the South African Police. Spent my last year working for Nelson Mandela. But more importantly, I moved into community policing, and I went into the townships that were normally no-go areas and tried to get the South African Police sort of re-established in the townships. And I used marine conservation to do this, which sounds very odd, but it actually worked very well. We ended up on a local 50-50 TV program. And of course, you know what happens if you do anything good in the police, you get ostracized. Anyway, I couldn't really take it much anymore. And anyway, I pretended I was crazy. I got boarded, I got a colonel's pension. And then I started doing private marine conservation, which focuses basically on education, which is very important. We do still help out with law enforcement. We do things to lower our carbon footprint. So we rehabilitate wetlands, we plant trees, we work on anti-pollution projects, and we're busy going to be staging protests against Coca-Cola in a few weeks' time against their single-use plastics. We've had enough of that. And yeah, so that is what we do. We run marine tours, and the marine tours actually generate the money to help us fund our projects. You know, it's very big organizations like Greenpeace. You'll find that 90% of the budget goes on admin, you know. So we generate our own funds and we run our own projects without anyone interfering with us. Anyway, so what I'll be doing today, I'm going to give you guys a talk on the Southern Hemisphere humpback migration route. And just bear in mind, it is aimed at kind of your average person. So it's very uncomplicated. There's lots of nice pictures, but I think you guys will get the message. And then I'll also be touching on whale communication, which is where I'm heading to next year on this whole humpback migration. I'm going to start using that as the basis for my talk. So I'll just touch on that a little bit. If you look at the screen in front of you at the moment, so this is Southern Africa. These are the 30 talks I gave last year. So all the way from Gabon in West Africa up to Kenya and 30 places in between. So what happens is the whales leave the Antarctic and they start arriving in Southern Africa like in the beginning of June. So in Port Elizabeth, we have the first festival and we welcome them. At all these places along the coast, we welcome the whales as they move up the coast. So we move up the coast and do all these festivals. And just to give an example, this is the Port Elizabeth one. We've got talks, we've got things for kids, we've got live music, we've got beer tents, we've got all that stuff to bring people. And once we get the people there, all right, we then actually bring in all these things like global warming and plastic pollution and entanglements and that kind of stuff. So very important. We also take Fluke with us. That's a full-size whale that folds up and puts in my kit bag, and he comes along with us. There's some monkeys having a little bit of fun with him. And then if we go, I take people right from the beginning. Where do whales come from? Which is the original whale ancestor? And that is the one there. So that was an animal from about 60 million years ago, because as you guys know, 65 million years ago, we had a meteorite hit on the Yucatan. There was flames all over the earth. The surface waters boiled and it destroyed the dinosaurs. But mammals were obviously tucked away in caves, and they managed to survive that. And eventually, 60 million years ago, this guy on the Sonic Kid, he started hunting around the area of the Tethys Sea, which is now the Mediterranean, and started evolving rather quickly. That's an archaeocete from 50 million years ago. You can still see the back legs there. It made various adaptations. Some of these guys even swam all the way to South America, which was a lot closer then. And yeah, they've got these crazy characteristics. If you have a look at that hand, that's from a Sowerby's beaked whale, which, you know, at first obviously evolved to walk on land. And then they've adapted to this aquatic way of life. Just here's a quick little video on what it looked like. That's a Pachycetus from Pakistan, found up in the Himalayas. All right, it's going. There we go, Pachycetus. Much more evolved, back hind, limbs are sort of disappearing, tail's getting a lot longer, a lot of different kidney functions to get rid of the salt. Start lose the nostrils moving to the top of the head. Dorudon, dolphins. There we go. All right, then I'll move on to cetaceans. That's the collective word for whales, dolphins, and porpoises. If you have a look at that, there's about 80 different species in the world. And they're divided into two. You've got the toothed whales and the baleen whales. So if you have a look in the center there, you've got the blue whale and all the big whales below it. They are what's known as the rorquals. They've got these rorqual pleats under their throats, which expand and contract during feeding. All right. Other baleen whales are the ones right at the top there. Those are the right whales and the bowhead whales. They don't have those rorqual pleats that expand. They've just got very big cavernous mouths. All right. Then you have the toothed whales, the largest being the sperm whale, which you can see just above left of the blue whale. And above that are the beaked whales, and also to the right of the picture, the beaked whales are your very deep diving animals. They can go down to Cuvier's beaked whale goes down to about 3.5 kilometers. You can imagine the evolutionary process of that. And then below the beaked whales on the right, you get the killer whale, which is in fact the largest member of the dolphin family. So why is it a killer whale? Here again, it's a size. Everything is size is very important for these guys. So any cetacean that gets larger than 4 meters gets called a whale. So a killer whale, a pilot whale, a false killer whale, they're all actually dolphins, and they prey on other marine mammals. And then, of course, you've got the porpoises as well. Okay, and then the freshwater dolphins. So as a prelude to talking about whale communication, we need to know why people think whales are intelligent. Are they in fact intelligent? And there's certain ways that we can judge intelligence in animals. The first ways are that they can do problem solving. Dolphins are absolutely brilliant at that, but you also get other animals like crows that can do that. Then another good test of intelligence is what's called the mirror test. So a dolphin can actually recognize itself in a mirror. If you put a black dot on its face, it'll see it, and it'll go and try and get rid of that black dot, which means it's actually recognizing itself, unlike a dog that just looks blankly at the screen. Then dolphins and chimpanzees have got something in common. They both form coalitions. They've both been seen using tools. They both use cooperative hunting, and they have these variable social groupings for mating and passing on information to each other. And then we come to the really important thing, and that is the whale songs. So if I can take you back to the 1960s, in fact, in 1967, there was a guy called Frank Watlington, and he was working for the American Navy. And he was working in submarines, looking for Russian submarines approaching. And what he heard this strange, what he called noise that kept on cropping up while he was listening for the submarines. And he couldn't work out what it was. And eventually he noticed that these sounds occurred when the humpback whales were migrating. And he recorded these songs. And he tried to make sense of them. He didn't want the whalers to get hold of them, because, you know, then they were hunting, they were killing 70,000 whales a year in 1967. You know, we all think that whales were killed in the days of Herman Melville and that. It wasn't. It was killed in the late 20th century, from the 60s, our years, 60s, 70s, up until it was outlawed in 1982. But anyway, he didn't know what to do with this. And then he got hold of a guy called Roger Payne, who was a conservation biologist. And he said to Roger, listen to this, take this and go and save the whales. Because this is a song, and this is, you can actually write it. You know, it's got notes, it's got phrases, and it's got themes. And these are repeated to actually make the song. So for the first time in the history of man, we found these animals that actually were singing. And it's not like a bird song. It's something that changes. These songs change over time. Each breeding season, they're changing. Anyway, so he went out with this science, and he started campaigns against it, and he started printing records with these songs on, and artists like Judy Collins and Dylan even, they picked up on these songs. And it came to a point where in 1972 there was a United Nations conference on the human environment, and this guy went and put forward the case for whales. And you know what he said? He actually said nothing. In lieu of talking, he played the whale songs. And it was these very songs that actually got the whales saved at the end, because they had a culture. And this culture is passed on from the parents to the children, from the grandparents to their offspring. So it's more than just a song. It's a whole culture. All these whales speak different dialects, you know, the sperm whales especially. So you've got something really, really special here in this song. So how these whales actually do this is that they go down to about 20 meters, head down, especially the humpback males, and then they pass air between the lungs and along this cartilaginous kind of tube to the laryngeal sac, which has got an aperture. And backwards and forwards, this creates different noise. And these noises are actually go through the body. The whole body is like an amplifier to amplify these sounds. I mean, they can be heard up to 2,600 kilometers away, which is huge. This is how far these animals are communicating. You know, the humpback whale has got the largest communication network on the planet after the internet, with all the cables and satellites and what have you. So it's something very, very, very special. And that's why we've chosen the humpbacks to link us all up around the world. Here is the guy, Roger Payne, the scientist, listening to whales of South America. And if I can just give you a good quote from him, and this is what he says. He says that the whale gave its voice in the human culture, and he was the guy that actually pushed for this. And this human decision on his part is one of the reasons why we still have any whales left, because it was after this and the whole Save the Whales campaign that whaling eventually became outlawed. And I mean, some of those populations were totally desecrated to less than 1% of their population. And as Arthur C. Clarke put it, you know, we don't know what we've killed. We don't even understand these cultures that the whales had. It was wiped, all the big ones, all the old ones were the first ones to be taken out. So we've destroyed a lot. The songs that these humpback whales are singing today is nothing like what they used to sing. You know, the whole ocean was alive with the sounds of whales. It was absolutely incredible. Anyway, this is the spectrogram that he produced from a humpback whale song, and it was the front cover of Science of 13th of August 1971. This is where it all started. So for 50 years plus, we've known about these whale songs, but we still don't know what they mean, which is amazing, actually. Anyway, so they've done a lot of work on cetacean brains. You know, it's easy to put a dolphin in one of these scanners, but unfortunately with the sperm whale, it's a bit of a problem. And the thing with a whale's brain is it's the first thing to cook. The scientists can't get to it quick enough. It just goes mushy. So we still so much to learn about. What we do know about cetacean brains, they're very, 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 very sophisticated, and there's lots of things that will allow more than just your average communication. There's lots happening there that we still have to find out. So something else about, if we think whales are intelligent, they can be trained. Yes, they can. They distribute something called epimolemic behavior, so they will mourn their dead. And if you look down there at the bottom, the Delphinidia, there's been lots and lots of observed cases of this, carrying their dead calf around. So that also proves intelligence. Brain size is quite important. If we have a look at this, the scale here, so it's all to do with brain size and body size. And if you look at rabbits, they're not doing very well. They're 0.4 of what they need. Cats are kind of equal. Gorillas 1.8, chimpanzees 2.5. Would have thought that chimpanzees are a little bit closer to us at 7.5. And here dolphins come in at 5.3. So they've got 5.3 times more intelligence than they need to actually run their bodily functions, which is amazing. So if we have a look at that, brain size to body size, which is the smartest of them all, and we see that the dolphins, specifically about the fifth one down, the Pacific white side, brain to body ratio is huge. All right, so that's sort of on the science side. What else I do when I go to these talks is that every area I go to, people show off what they have in their area. So this is Algoa Bay. I'll just take you for a quick guide to the animals we have here, and I'll do the same when I go up into Kenya. I'll get slides from there, so I'll build that all into the presentation. So that's, anyone knows that's a Bryde's whale that we get here. They're the ones associated with the sardine run. You've got the common dolphins that have got the bait fish in the ball, and these whales come up and clean up the lot. You can see its eye in the middle there. Of course, gannets, once it's stationary, the gannets come tumbling down. There's the rorqual pleats that I explained to you about, that distend during feeding. I mean, have a look at that. That's there's a lot of water and a lot of fish in there. And basically that then is contracted, and the water flows out through the baleen plates. There's about 500 in each top jaw. Water flows out and the food stays behind. Then we've got our southern right whales. They come into our bay here. They don't go as far as the humpback whales. They come in to mate. You can imagine every male will mate with a receptive female. And that's what Moby's dick looks like. You can see it sticking out the water. That's a whale's winky. It's prehensile. It's like a monkey's tail that can move around. And every now and again, you'll have a white calf born. About 3% are white. They're all male. And they turn into what's known as a brindle. You can see the blowholes there and the top of the jaw. All right, this is just our beautiful Alexandria dune field that we have. That's the start of our bay, Cape Recife, with a southern right reaching. That's a sunset shot with a southern right. And then, of course, we've got African penguins. Unfortunately, we've got ship-to-ship fuel transfers that are carrying on in Algoa Bay. We're spending a lot of time fighting them. It was done without an environmental impact assessment because it was a grey area. No one transferred fuel at sea, and unfortunately it's heavy furnace oil. And when the penguins spin it, they dive right into it. You can see I almost cried that day I saw that poor little penguin. And this is St. Croix Island. This is their, used to be their stronghold. I took that photograph in 2000. And since then, they used to always collect the eggs in the old days. And then we had all the oil spills when they closed the Suez Canal. And unfortunately, after so much overfishing and so much oil pollution, oil spills, that is what it looks like today. It's an absolute crying shame. I've had carte blanche in here. We've raised 60,000 Rand. The only way to take on these guys, like we did with the seismic surveys, we got that stopped, was the legal route. We have to take them on legally, which is what we're doing. So otherwise, they'll laugh at you. If there's money being made to some consortium in Johannesburg, you're not going to stop the transfers. Anyway, that's what it should look like. This is a raft of penguins going feeding. Beautiful, beautiful little animals. They indicate a species. They're indicating that something is wrong in the bay. Anyway, we also have common dolphins. These are amazing things. This was shooting a BBC. This was last week, in fact. They're just hanging around in our bay, and beautiful ones for our tourists to get a look at. That's one of our vessels, our whale watching boat. And yeah, amazing to see. This is the Alexandria June fields. These are bottlenose dolphins. I won the best picture in a marine, in a sand parks, national park, and I won like a 2-day holiday or something. The following year, the prize was a land cruiser. So yes, that was a hard one to swallow. Anyway, these are these amazing dune fields, and the dolphins come surfing down. If you look to the right, you'll see our old stunt at the midden there. And we get amazingly huge schools, up to 6. This was a school of 600 going through the waves. You can see how tricky it is on the catamaran getting in close there. You don't want to come back in the newspapers. That's the end of our bay. That's Woody Cape, part of Addo National Park. Got a marine section now. And yeah, these tourists from all over the world come to get these shots. It's just incredible. And look at the contrast between the ocean and the sand. Wonderful. So yeah, we had got the Minister of Tourism down here, head of local tourism, and we proclaimed it the bottlenose dolphin capital of the world. So good. We also got killer whales. That's a male of Spoonmarker's Cop in Port Elizabeth. That's a female. And every year we get the BBC coming along to film the sardine run, which is great. And this was a couple of weeks ago. We had a big school of 14 killer whales in here. Then we also got our Cape fur seals. That's eating a Blu-ray. And here's one that's just hijacked a ship and is just about to head off, sitting in the front there. All right, so then we get to our humpback whale. This is what our migration story is all about. Megaptera, mega, big, terror, wing. So the big wing beast of Nova Anglia, of New England. So those flippers that you see on there, that's the largest appendage of any animal. They use those to whack killer whales. Killer whales will come in for the young ones, come in for the calf, and that's the only way the female can beat them off, which she does quite readily. If you look at the whale superhighways, I'm colorblind, so this map means absolutely squat to me. I can't see a thing on there, but I asked someone to help me. And the humpback whale, you can see, I believe it's orange. So the orange is pretty much all over the world. So once we've united, I went to Aussie for 4 months to get them in just before COVID, and then that all fell flat. But we're linking up the southern hemisphere with these humpback whale migration routes, and then we're going to move into the northern hemisphere. I'm doing that now from June. I'll be going through Europe and over to Canada and up into Alaska. You know, if we can unite people around the world under the banner of the humpback whales, if anything starts happening whales, we've already got these networks set up. And I found without networks, you're absolutely lost, which is why you guys are so good. You network a lot. So this is where we're looking at going with the World Cetacean Alliance. Just why the whales come here very quickly. If you look at the bottom of the map, the Southern Ocean, that's where they feed. So during the Southern Hemisphere summer, you've got 24 hours of sunlight, lots of plant growth. You've got lots of oxygen dissolved in that water and carbon dioxide. It's only 2 degrees. The colder liquid can get more dissolved gases. And there's lots of nutrients. When the water freezes on Antarctica, it freezes as fresh water and all the nutrients are given out. So your phytoplankton growth in that area is massive. That feeds your zooplankton, your krill and your copepods and all of that stuff. That's what the whales eat. All right, now it's time to give birth. They cannot give birth there because that water is 2 degrees and whale calves are born with no insulating blubber. So they head to the nearest landmass, which in this case is Africa. Half of them go up the west coast of Africa to Gabon, and the other half go up the east coast of Kenya. That's where they have their calves. They then breastfeed there, a couple of 100 liters every day. And when the calf reaches about 8 meters, they then start the southern journey, coming back past Algoa Bay, like at the end of November, and they leave our coast. The first time the female feeds is when she gets back there. So what an incredible journey that she does. That's the migratory whales. The reason the males go all the way up there, why do males do anything, of course, is because they need to mate. And the gestation period is 1 year. So the females must be mated with where they're going to be given birth. After that, the males disappear. They don't play any more role. So that's their very simplified path that they take. And from the Antarctic, there we go. That's them feeding in the pack house there. And very important, with global warming, these glaciers are melting. And that's where the krill lay their eggs, is under that ice. So very, very important there. That's zooplankton, and that's the krill that they're eating. All right, so let's have a closer look at that. On their way, this is what they had to encounter. They had the whole flippin' whaling fleet after them, and this just got worse and worse. Even in South Africa, we had shore base. This was on St. Croix Island. There's an old rusty pot. But then after the Second World War, you started getting much, much more sophisticated ships. Just an interesting thing, sperm whales taught each other that when the sailing ships were hunting them, swim into the wind, the guys can't catch you. Amazing. That was their culture. They communicated that to all the other people, all the other whales, sorry. Not only that, they transmitted that knowledge across whole ocean basins to other populations of sperm whales that hadn't been hunted. And when the whalers arrived there, these whales knew what to do. Okay, but obviously when these factory ships came along and these catcher ships, they were totally outgunned. Look at that. That was on Georgia, South Georgia. Absolute mass. It's the biggest cull that's ever happened on the history of this planet. Right, that was the whaling station on the west coast there, near Saldanha Bay, massive, massive operation. And that was the one at Durban. If you look there, that's a train. That's how they used to bring the whales. That's a humpback whale. And if you look on the left of the screen, you see those are the humpback whales. When they started becoming less and less, they took on the blue whale. When the blue whales become less, the next one down was the fin, then the sperm, then the sei, and then the small little minky whale. And if you have a look, this is probably the most important graph that I will show you tonight. This is the breeding stock C of humpback whales. These are the ones that come past the East Africa. So they come past Port Elizabeth, Durban, and up to Kenya. So when they started hunting them from Durban in 1908, their population was about 15,000, as you can see there. Then they hunted them down to about almost just a little bit more than 10,000. Then they went up again. Anyone know why? Okay, First World War. Humans were busy killing each other. All right, so they recovered a bit. And with that technology, bang, down they went again to 1939. Pressure off, boom, up again just a little bit, and then kept on dropping down until in the 60s, there was less than 100 of these guys left. What happened there in 1968, or 1976 in this case in Durban? There was a paradigm shift, all right? All that people did was they stopped hunting whales, and look what happened to the population. Within not many decades, the population bred right up back to pre-exploitation levels at 15,000, just from a paradigm shift. Stop hunting them. It wasn't getting profitable anymore. They were having to look too far to get them. So what I always say to people, that low point in history of the whales there, 1976, that's where we are on the planet at present, with global warming, plastic pollution, and all the associated problems that go with it. We are there, and we need these whales to get us out of the shit that we find ourselves in today. They've done it. We need to do it. And with your support, hopefully we're going to get there. Let's have a look at the problems they face today. Ship strikes. That's an adult humpback whale. Look at its size. That ship doesn't even know if it hit it. That's one I took a couple of weeks back. There's some guys on the ship taking photographs. All right, the biggest problem we've got at the moment with humpbacks is entanglement in fishing gear. All right, so what happens is these whales are coming all the way from Antarctic, nothing to scratch on. They find these crayfish traps with a rope and a buoy on the top, and they scratch on it, they roll in it, they get entangled, and it's very, very difficult to get. They die a slow, lingering, terrible death. I've been working with a minister's office. I've been running a petition to try and get them to use traps without fishing, without attached buoys and ropes. Ropeless fishing gear. It's done with acoustic release. It's not rocket science. They're doing it all over the world. It's just South Africa that they're not doing it. When they were, all these Bryde's whales and humpbacks were getting stuck in the octopus traps in False Bay, people could see them. So it was getting reported. There was a big hullabaloo. These crayfish traps sit mainly on the Agulhas Bank, 100 kilometers out to sea. No one sees them there. We just get the ones washing up. We've got to try and do something. Look at that. I mean, that's just unacceptable. That's rope around a whale that will eventually die. And here's another one that I released off close to me. That's what I find in front of my house in the morning. Here's a beautiful killer whale entangled. All right, just to give you a quick example, this was one that we disentangled. few years back with our sea rescue. We were 3 hours with it. I spotted it in the morning. I got them all on board. They've got those poles with knives on that have got a V shape that it cuts through those cables. And you won't believe it that when we released this whale after 2 hours, a calf popped out. You can see it on the front right. Can you believe it? It must have given birth on release, because otherwise we would have seen it. There's no doubt in my mind. And I know this is a bit of a cliche, but here's the female now showing her appreciation, I guess, jumping for joy. But what's more amazing, that we rode 2.5 hours to this point, we didn't see one single whale, not one. On the way back, we were treated to over 100 breaches. That whale had communicated that sound throughout the rest of them. They had come in. I even got a picture of a double breach, which was the first time ever. They were all over the place. That message definitely was put up. So that's our petition. If you ever want to sign it, please do so. Anyway, they will just quickly take you on a tour of these beautiful humpback whales when they get to Algoa Bay. That's in front of our city. That is the port control building. On the left is the monument to the British settlers that arrived in 1820. It's 150 years old now. There's our football stadium. Always try and get good backgrounds. That's St. Croix Island, where myself and my partner used to go and study the penguins. That's the new port at Koche that's giving us all these environmental headaches. And then they moved to the other side of the bay. That's Bird Island. And you can having them in there is great. That was a very worrying moment. I don't know if you can see the problem with that picture. It's that the whale's coming straight towards us, and it wasn't very far away. Don't want to get hit by a whale. That one's right out the water. And then we even had this white one. There was one in Australia called Migaloo, which means white fellow in Aborigine. So we had this one in South Africa. I called it Umlungu, which means the white foam that comes off the sea, which is what the Khoisas call the white people. Anyway, that's tail slapping on the way to Woody Cape. And there you can see killer whale. That's a failed attack. You can see the teeth marks on that whale. These guys are having a little bit of a talk. And you can see that where killer whale got hold of that one as well at Bird Island. There's the three wise men having a chat. And then, of course, these humpback whales come back past Algoa Bay here in November. There's a little one. And you can actually see there how the mother has her body, her spine is sticking out. Now, on the way up, she's absolutely round. So you can see the resources are running a little bit down. If she doesn't get back to Antarctica, her calf won't make it either. She's on her way. Why they grow so quickly? If you look at human milk, we've got a 3.3% fat content, whereas whales have 43%. It's like it's got the consistency of toothpaste, and it's full of fat. All right, there's a little ones with its mom. See that? And then that's one on the right would be what's called an escort. So it can be a male or a receptive female. All right, these are males. They come through in groups of up to 20. No one messes with them. That was off Gabon this year. I went on a trip. I came back into the hotel and I gave a presentation. The people couldn't believe I took that picture off Gabon. They've never seen it before. All right, and this is something very interesting. You get this off Cape Town in summer when the whales should be back. This is what's called the super ponds, and they're all feeding here on krill or plankton. They're non-breeders, so they don't need to go to Kenya to breed, and they don't want to stay in the Antarctic because it's cold and miserable and there's no food. So they come off to the Western Cape and feed there. This is a picture that I always wanted to take. I was good friends with Professor Margaret Smith of the coelacanth fame. She was at Rhodes University when I was there. And I went along there and she had a picture one day of a whale out the water. She said to me, "My boy, I'm giving you this picture. Go and take one yourself." It took me 30 years and here we go. So this is all these photographs you've seen are my own ones. This is a humpback whale breaching. It starts off the breach like that. Starts arching its back a bit like an Olympic pole vaulter. There come the pectoral fins. You can see the rorqual pleats there. It starts to spin and it's still going. Now my camera's on auto. It's on, multiple shots, and I'm wondering now, gee whiz, what's going to happen? Is it going to make it? And eventually I got the shot. There we go, right out the water, 40-ton whale. I finally got it. So yes, and of course the re-entry, quite something to observe. Right, there's a little bit of a funny. And now I'm going to show you a quick video that was done by the World Cetacean Alliance, and we became a whale heritage site. I hope you enjoy it. Here we
got him.
My name is Lloyd Edwards. I'm the owner, skipper and guide of Raggy Charters, and I also run the Baywatch Marine Conservation Project, which was started 30 years ago and is probably the oldest privately funded marine conservation project in Africa. So today we are on Bird Island in the eastern extremity of Algoa Bay, and it's the centre of the Greater Addo Marine Protected Area. We're on a whale and dolphin viewing trip. Algoa Bay is probably one of the best places in the world to view whales and dolphins because of the huge diversity of species and the actual abundance of them. Algoa Bay is also known as the bottlenose dolphin capital of the world, and we have about 28,500 dolphins that use the bay. So finding dolphins in our bay is a 99% hit rate.
I'm Purity Kosa and I'm a marine tour guide with Raggy Charters. So we see a lot of cetaceans, for example the Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins. We also see a lot of migratory whales and penguins.
In June 2021, Algoa Bay became the second site in South Africa to be awarded Whale Heritage Site status, a global accreditation scheme for responsible wildlife-friendly tourism experiences developed by the World Cetacean Alliance and supported by World Animal Protection.
The Whale Heritage Site initiative is really, well, it's a certification programme, that's the first thing we should say, but it's about sites, it's about destinations, and it's really about responsible tourism, and particularly responsible, sustainable whale and dolphin watching tourism. We call it the gold standard for global whale watching. If you go to a whale heritage site, you can be sure that the trip that you would take to see these animals really puts the animals first. It puts their welfare and their conservation first, and that is a wonderful thing.
It's critical for us to be accredited as a whale heritage site because tourists, they want to know that they are supporting tour operators that are looking after the interests of the whales and dolphins in their area. When they're with us, they can see that we've built up an amazing amount of knowledge in the last 24 years. They can feel our passion. They know that we've got this great accreditation, and it allows them to be more trustworthy in this, and by the end of the day they get a much better experience.
We view whale heritage sites as the future for whale and dolphin tourism, really. You know, the days of going to see these animals in captivity and in confinement should be coming to an end.
Captive whales and dolphins spend their entire lives in small barren tanks, performing unnatural and demeaning tricks in exchange for food. Dolphins are intelligent wild animals, and so their confinement and use in entertainment is highly unethical.
You're going to learn nothing about these animals in a tank. You're not seeing them behaving normally, you're not seeing the environment that they live in. Instead, why not go to a whale heritage site where the people really care about these animals, and that is obvious.
We know that the years of having dolphins and other cetacean species and things in captivity is becoming a thing of the past, and we're progressing. Why not come and see them in a natural habitat that is not manufactured by training?
The difference between seeing a whale and a dolphin in captivity and in the wild is absolutely huge. When you see it in the wild, you see it at work in its natural day, interacting with each other, fighting with each other, playing with each other, surfing the waves. It's incredible to see the speed at which they can move. They're so alive, they're so intelligent, they're so in tune with nature. I like watching the visitors because to see the expression on their faces is absolutely incredible. And with dolphins, they just never get tired of them.
Today was a beautiful day in Algoa Bay, and it was a tremendous event. Dolphins are such a beautiful animal, and we saw them diving out of the waves and catching waves. The dolphins are always the highlight of this trip.
is there time for me just to read something out very, very briefly, or we set for
yes,
time?
there is. Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
There is some time. Okay. Just one thing is from when I was speaking about when we first discovered, that these whales were making these songs. It was about the time that the Voyager space probes were sent into orbit. That was 1971, and they're now 19 billion miles away. But what they put inside these craft was something for any other intelligence to find what it was like on Earth. So they put all these important documents in them, articles, and how we ate and how we slept and this and that. And then there were 55 greetings from different languages on the planet, and only one of another animal, which was a whale. They put these whale songs on there. So I think any extraterrestrial that had got hold of this would have thought these humans are not very smart. Why is there only one other animal besides themselves? And if we could learn a lesson from there, I think this would be it, is that if the whales could give us an understanding of the world, of an empathy towards other species, then it would be the single most important lesson that we could ever learn. Humankind has no respect for the planet and for the other animals. And I think that the dominant problem we face is what we are missing by not being in closer touch with the rest of life on Earth. And if we have any future at all, we have to somehow make sure that what we do is to preserve the rest of the life on Earth, because without it, we will not make it. And for that scientist, Roger Payne, that I spoke about, showing the world over how to empathize with whales was a critical bridge to a cultural change essential to our own very survival. It was a way to comprehend our interconnectedness and to correct the wanton course on which we've set ourselves. And if you guys, there's a very good book out by a guy called Tom Mustel, who was a conservation biologist. He now makes movies. So please read that book. It's absolutely fascinating. And he's embarked on a journey to try and understand how we might speak whale and decode that communication. And after doing this, it dawned on him that why we might want to do this was far more important than actually finding out what this was about. In fact, he had an interview with Harry from WCA the other day, and he reckons that in Costa Rica, they are doing studies on sperm whales, which is they create the largest noise of any animal on the planet, and they speak across ocean basins. But they've deployed banks and banks of hydrophones and drones and base stations, and they're recording every single noise that these sperm whales make. And they're hoping to eventually decipher what they are saying to each other. And he explains it pretty much like Google Translate. Google Translate doesn't have an English and a Spanish dictionary. It's all put together with phrases that people say to each other. And those phrases are fed into artificial intelligence, and that's how it works. And that's exactly what they're going to do with these sperm whale sounds, is they're going to put it through artificial intelligence. We can't do it. And they reckon that by 2026, we possibly will be communicating with sperm whales. So there's something to think about. Thank you very much for allowing me my time. It was a difficult first time, I must say. I'm not used to this kind of way of presenting, but the whole reason I did it was so that I could become more versed with it. Little things like getting the light shining on my face, getting the right laptop to take around Africa and the world with me. It's all very important. So thank you for allowing me, and this being my sort of baptism of fire, I guess. Thank you guys all so much.
Lloyd, thank you for being a fantastic ambassador for the humpback whales and absolutely wowing us with this collection of photographs. first of all, you just made us fall in love with the animals, which is great. Before you really ignited that passion for conservation in us again tonight. So that's fantastic. And then I would just like to thank you for the enormous amount of conservation work that you do. I would like to refer everybody to Raggy Charters' website. Marette, if you can please share that in the chat, where people can see all the a lineup of conservation programs that you run and self-fund. That is incredible. I mean, that's why you go out 3 times a day on a boat. And, it sounds like a very romantic lifestyle, and it is, but it's still a lot of hard work. And really our respect for that. Thank you very much for this program, this route that you put together and pioneered. And I would like to ask Harry to just come in as we start the Q&A. Harry, if there are any way that that the audience can participate, citizen science, if people can donate or sign a petition somewhere, if you can perhaps share it with us, we'd be very happy to hear from you.
Absolutely, thank you for that, and fantastic job, Lloyd. Absolutely, wonderful presentation. Yeah, if people want to support the work of the WCA, we have a number of projects around the world. There's already been the link on the chat, but I'll repost it again to the World Cetacean Alliance. We have campaigns, we have petitions to sign to protect dolphins and whales from industrial fishing is one of our campaigns. We're hoping to continue to support Lloyd's work in Southern Africa with this whale migration route. So yeah, please go onto our website. It's there in the chat. There's more information about the work that we do and Lloyd's work on the Whale Heritage site as well. So yeah, please check us out and support us how you can.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So it's now time for the Q&A. So as normal, you can use the reaction tools at the bottom of the screen to alert our attention that you would like to ask a question. If you are shy, but please don't be shy, you're welcome to ask a question in the chat. We would love to hear from you. There's no such thing as a stupid question. We would love Lloyd to share his intimate knowledge of the whales with you this evening. So please feel free to ask questions. Marty, it's Tavani whose hand is up. Marty was beaten. Tavani, welcome. Please go ahead.
Hi, sorry for the bad lighting. First of all, this was a fantastic talk. Thank you so much. I'm at the moment in Hungary and I miss working with marine animals so much. So this was such a fun talk to listen to. I do have a question about, so one of the things we learned about was that having ecotourism is such a great way to get an income for the locals. It's a way to get people involved. It's a fantastic way of education. But how does especially with boats, how does the fuel and stuff like that affect the animals in the water?
Thanks, Tavani. Please.
Tawani, look, a few years before we started, everyone was running 2-stroke outboards. So a 2-stroke outboard has oil that is mixed with a fuel, and that is, I would say, very bad for the environment. I'm sure that's especially inland waterways. So so that we've moved to the 4-stroke, which is a clean burning engine, very little emissions, and I think compared to the rest of what's going on in the ocean, I think it's a very small amount, and most of it actually goes into the atmosphere. And in order to offset our carbon footprint that we do on cruises, we actually plant at least 1 tree for every cruise undertaken. So we built a speckboom whale. We use a thing called a speckboom. It's a succulent, and it's got one of the best carbon fixing attributes of any plant on this planet. It's even better than a rainforest. So we built a whale with that, and besides planting that 1 tree, we also have about 10 wetlands around the Port Elizabeth area, which we are rehabilitating. So we're cutting out all the alien invasive vegetation, and we're replacing it with native. So we trying to keep our footprint as neutral as possible.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks, Tavani. Andrew Mariti, you're most welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Lloyd. First of all, Ruan and LCA, thank you very much for the new year, and may you prosper as we have been in the last year. My question to Lloyd is that the humpback whales are so much important animal. And in the South, yes, you're doing very great work in, harnessing them and keeping them okay and stuff like that. But in Greenland, they are being hunted. I don't know why, because they're intelligent. They are, they're a good animal. What is the problem in the North?
So at present on the planet, there's a few people that are still hunting whales, and I'll get to the North soon, but the first one is Japan. And Japan were always hunting, in inverted commas, for scientific research. They were hunting in the Southern Hemisphere, sort of whale protected area. And since then, they've moved, and they're only hunting in the sea off Japan. So they localize it, and they're hunting minke whales, the small whales, and sometimes, I think, fin whales. Then you still have, further up, you've got Norway, which are still hunting, as well as Iceland. Iceland have now stopped hunting whales. It was just something that they always did, and they said, we're going to carry on doing it. All right, those are the industrialized countries. But then you get to places like in Greenland, where you've got the Inuits, people that have traditionally hunted whales for, I guess, thousands and thousands of years. And they say that it's kind of part of their culture. And they only take, and mainly it's done in sort of open boats and with old harpoons, that they're still using. So I think, although I don't agree with it, I can see the point that it is part of their culture, and they do eat. It's not as if it's being exported for dog food or so. They actually, they process and they eat that whole whale, and they kind of use just about every part of it. So these first world, First Nation people, as they're called, they still do it as part of their culture, but it's not on any large scale. We're talking, when they're hunting was whales at its peak, it was 70,000 whales a year that were being killed. I think with these guys, it's probably 1 or 2 a season,
Yeah, but now, Lloyd, you guys, South, are doing such a good, fantastic work in preserving them. Now, can't you, with the good work you do in South here, Algoa Bay and those places, can't you influence these guys and say, preserve them, they're humble, they're intelligent species. I don't know. Why can't you?
I think, Andrew, many people have tried over the years to influence these people. And it's like trying to tell somebody in the middle of the Kalahari Desert that he mustn't hunt animals, antelope. It's part of it's what Bushmen have been doing for centuries. So I think it's difficult, and it's a touchy subject. But so yeah, I must say I'm not that clued up on that. But I'll tell you what, Andrew, I'll give it some thought, and I'll see what we can do and where we can go to in that direction, especially if I'm planning to go up to Greenland, and up into the northern part of Alaska. So if I come across those guys, I'll send your greetings on to them, and I'll ask them.
Please ask them. They humble,
well.
these guys. They're very humble. They are nice species. Why kill them? That's my question, you know.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Okay.
Marty, your hand is up. I just want to, Marty, before we move on to you, there are a number of people in the chat that are talking about killer whales, Lloyd. Would you, I know Harry already commented on it, and it's basically the questions are all surrounding, is the occurrence of killer whales in the Southern Hemisphere or the South African coast specifically a new thing, or did it always happen but people didn't notice it, or it wasn't scientifically recorded? What is your experience in Algoa Bay?
The first answer to that question, I think what's changed the most over the last 50 years is that people now have mobile phones. So before the advent of mobile phones, you had people, fishermen going out, they'd see a killer whale, they'd tell some guy in a pub, and that's where it would end. Now everybody has a mobile phone with them. So every single killer whale encounter is filmed. And that then goes on to social media. And now people kind of get the impression that, yes, well, there's a lot of killer whales around. I think it's just being reported more. That's the one side of it. But then also from the science, we've got a catalog that we contribute to. And I think besides that, they are more and more showing up along our coast. And it could be for a number of reasons. The big reason is probably that there's a lot of pressure on the prey on the Agulhas Bank. We've got a lot of foreign fishing vessels and South African fishing vessels that are taking their traditional tuna and stuff like that. So because of that, I think they're starting to move closer inshore. And, you know, they prey on a variety of things, but mainly on humpback dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, and common dolphins. And then there's also the two called port and starboard. They these killer whales, and the one's dorsal fin bends over to the left, so his name is port, and the other one bends over to the right, that's starboard. And they've perfected the art of actually killing great white sharks. So they'll come in, they'll give the shark a smack, they'll get it onto its back, which immobilizes it. And then each one of these guys, which are brothers, all right, they grab the pectoral fins. They know that because they've x-rayed them and seen the tooth marks on them. They've got flat teeth, by the way, because the sharks have got like quite a rough skin. So that files their teeth down. And then they rip on those pectoral fins, and that actually opens the body cavity. And from there, all they do is they take the liver out, which in those big sharks is very sizable. You know, it's full of vitamin D and lipids and all sorts of stuff. And it makes a good meal, and that's what they survive on. So yeah, answering two questions there, but that's my take on all of that.
Thank you. Marty, please go for it.
Thanks very much, Lloyd. Jan, you said you were surprised that I wasn't the first question. I had to wait for load shedding to end before I could turn on my cameras. I actually lost the talk through, but I went on my phone. But yeah, thanks very much, Lloyd. It was very interesting. Most intrigued by that sort of throat structure. I think you called it guffles or something like that. That sort of expanding big throat of some of the whales. I mean, how many liters of water and obviously fish and everything can that actually hold? I mean, it looks massive.
Yeah, it is. You don't realize actually how big it is. That those are called rorqual cleats. So it's from the Old Norse. Rorqual means like bellows. So I'm not sure how much it takes, but yeah, it must take a good few tons of fish and water in there. I mean, if you saw that one image I had. And what's very interesting about that whole thing is that it was only about 5 or 6 years ago that they discovered that there's an organ in the rorqual whales, and it's situated at the back molar, and it comes out of there, and this organ actually controls the opening of the mouth, all right, the packing away of the tongue, the getting the baleen plates into position, and then releasing the tension on those pleats. It all happens in a split second, and that is what allows the mouth to open like that. It's a special organ, and then gradually it starts contracting the muscles, and it pushes that water into the mouth, and then inside the mouth, the tongue. If you want to squirt water through your teeth, you use your tongue and you make that kind of noise, and that's exactly what the whale does. It then pushes its tongue up, and that water flows out through these baleen plates, which is one of the reasons the whales were hunted, was for this baleen. And it's made of the same stuff as your fingernails. It's made of the protein keratin. Yeah, same stuff as rhino horn as well. And anyway, that's part of the whole feeding process.
So that sort of leads on to the next sort of bottom of my question. So in a way, with that massive volume that it's gulping, it's probably fairly indiscriminate in terms of what actually gets in there. I mean, there's bigger fish and small things and everything. Does it actually sort it? Is there a sorting system, or whatever gets in there, it just swallows and goes into the stomach cavity and the things eventually die from the acid? Or does it, like, I mean, if there's I think I've even seen a picture of one like taking in a bird or two as it's gulping. I mean, does it let the things that it didn't actually intend to eat get out, or it's big fish, small fish, whatever?
No, actually, if you take the bride's whale or the Brutus whale, some of them have been found with shark remains in the stomach. So what you probably find is it's going along and it's feeding on sardines, and it's like, oh shit, I swallowed a shark by accident. And down it goes, and penguins and seabirds. But even with a humpback whale, the throat is about the size of a large grapefruit. So the hole to get down there is not that big. So something like a human would get obviously ejected. They wouldn't be swallowed, wouldn't go down. You can't get a grapefruit down your plug hole. So I reckon it would be pretty much a similar kind of system,
So the baleen almost acts like a sieve, and anything that's too big kind of gets expelled again, or
I reckon it would just open its mouth and get rid of it. Yeah.
Okay. No, cool. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
I don't know, Lloyd. I think Marty might not go down, but Andrew looks very skinny. He might go down. I don't know. Lloyd, I also see in the chat they're touching on the touchy debate of hunting whales. Andy Klee is reporting there that around 130 whales killed in 2022 by Iceland. But then also Peter Mills acknowledging the right of First Nation people to hunt for subsistence. And I think one must just acknowledge that there is a difference between subsistence hunting and hunting at a large industrial scale. But it is, as you say, a touchy debate and ongoing at the moment. Andy, you're welcome. You've got your hand up.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Jan. Yeah, Lloyd, brilliant talk and brilliant work. Two parts of the question. If you're coming to Europe, are you coming to the UK? Be good to see you if you are. That's where I am. And the second one, we've all survived till 2026. The microphone's open and you're the first person to speak to a whale. What are you going to say apart from sorry?
Brilliant question.
Dear. Yeah, I haven't thought of that. First part of your question, yes, I am coming to the UK, and I will be with the World Cetacean Alliance down there in Brighton, and I'll be going up north as well to see some of the partners. So I'll make a turn if you give me your address. Come have a cup of tea. Yeah, what would I say to them? Sure, I don't know. I don't have a clue. I'd have absolutely no idea. I'll probably ask them, what's it like living in such a polluted ocean? What can we do to help you? Give us some clues here. But your lives depend on it. What is the worst? Is it lack of food? Is it the ropes that you get stuck in? Is it all this plastic that you're ingesting? You know where it's coming from. It's Coca-Cola. They've won it 5 years in a row, the biggest plastic polluter on the planet. Something like that, I guess.
Yeah, I'm stuck as to what I'd asked them as well. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's almost a dream to be able to speak to your favorite creature that you've been studying or just wondering about and all the rest of it. It's like, right, here's that. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, what would you say? I mean, there's so much you want to know. You don't even know where to begin, do you? What's it like? What are you thinking? What do you think of us? How do we learn from you? How do we learn from each other? How do we coexist? Stuff like that, I suppose. But you need to have a cup of tea and a sardine or something and really sit down and swim around and have a good chat and get to know each other, I suppose. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Thank you ever so much for all the work.
No problem.
I'm a long way from Brighton for a pop in for a cup of tea, but if you're ever near North Devon in the southwest, you're welcome anytime.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Oh, cheers.
Thanks so much. All right. Just to get back to Marty, to your question there, I've just Deborah showed me something. A blue whale in one gulp. All right, we can take 0.7 of a liter. Okay. A blue whale takes 80 tons of water and food in one gulp. 80 tons. That's huge.
Next level, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen these Bryde's whales when they're feeding on sardines and anchovies. I've seen the dolphins get the pod station, get the fish station, and then you've got the gannets going and everything. And all of a sudden, the gannets move out the way, the cormorants go, the dolphins pull back, and this massive mouth comes up and just takes the rest of the school that's left. And that must be, I don't know how many tons of fish and water. So it's quite something to behold. You guys must come down for it. If you ever want to come to Algoa Bay, come in April when we've got the sardine run on the go here. You'll see stuff that you just can't believe. I mean, this year with the BBC are coming, they're doing a whole thing on penguins, and they're coming to film that during that time. So it's wonderful. We filmed the Blue Planet and Perfect Planet. That was all the top side was filmed here in Algoa Bay.
On the topic of sardines, if I can quickly just add, I mean, are the numbers as bad as we've been hearing, affecting everything, penguins and whales and the whole lot, or have they recovered in it? Is it due to the sea temperature?
No, look, the West Coast and Namibia, the sardine population and anchovies collapsed, total collapse. And while it was collapsing, the scientists, the fishery scientists were still saying, no, there's enough stocks, there's enough stocks. And I think the same is happening. So what they've now discovered is that the West Coast is a separate stock to the South and the East Coast of sardines. So you are allowed to catch X amount of a stock. And they were saying, okay, well, we're allowed to take 40%. But it was 40% of one stock, not 40% of the whole. So they should have been taking 20% on the West Coast and 20% on the South. They didn't. So that collapsed. And if you look, as the fish collapsed, behind them, the gannet their population started decreasing, and the penguins also started decreasing. The same thing is happening here on the South Coast. Those boats have moved around from the West Coast, and they're now all catching here off Port Elizabeth. I mean, they catch 50 tons in one night. And the penguins are basically starving. That's what the scientists are telling you. They're saying these animals are not getting enough food. And that is your basic basis of your food chain is your bait fish. And, you know, it would be fine if they were taking them for human consumption, but they're feeding that stuff to pigs and sheep and cattle and making bone meal out of it and chickens and all of that. You know, you're taking the most essential part after plankton, you're taking that out of the sea. All over the world, fishery scientists have been wrong. If you read the unnatural history of the sea, you will see that everywhere in the world these stocks collapse. We are lucky that we still got a fairly big sardine run going on here every year. I mean, it's still pretty good, but the animals are struggling.
And are there signs of recovery with the other ships having moved away from the West Coast? I mean, will the South Shoal go west, or are they like a different species or subspecies?
They're different. No, they're different. They don't overlap. They're separate populations. I even think there's a third population which is centered here in Algoa Bay. So, yeah. You know, they can't even catch their quotas. You know, they're fighting about quotas. They can't get their quota. Now, surely there's something wrong. And you know, these scientists, I've been doing this for 20 years. In the 20 years I've been doing it, the conservation biologists are fighting with the fishery scientists about how much should be taken, how much shouldn't, are the penguins numbers decreasing because of fish. They cannot decide. And that's been 20 years. The minister said, listen, if you don't decide, I'm going to start making decisions. And they still can't come to an agreement. So it's a lot more complicated than it kind of looks on the surface.
Thanks, I'll stop. I think Andrew's waiting.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. But your Q&A is almost as interesting as your talk. It's very revealing answers. Thank you very much. Andrew, you're welcome. Andrew, just unmute.
Yes, thank you very much, Johan. Actually, what I wanted to ask, Marty has already asked that. So thank you very much, Lloyd. Yes.
Thanks, Andrew. If you're going to hang around, Marty's going to ask your question. Any other questions at the moment? Ruan, did I miss anything in the chat? That's important.
There was one from Sibylla Redmiller. Wonderful work, Lloyd. I trust you are in contact with the East African Whale Monitoring Network organized by Matt Richmond.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Please, can you put me in contact with those guys? I'm looking specifically for contacts in Tanzania. I've been trying, you know, I don't even think they don't answer their emails, but I'm really struggling with Tanzania. So if there's anybody there that can help me out for this year's whale route, then please put them in contact with me.
I think what we'll do, Maret, I know Sibylla won't mind if she's still on.
She's there.
We can share. Sibylla, can I unmute? May I unmute you, and then you can maybe you can chat with Lloyd. Because Sibylla, if you're all right with it, we'll give your email address to Lloyd, and then you can chat, because I think that's a wonderful opportunity.
Sorry, I can't. I have some problems here with my camera. Lloyd, I will put you in touch. Do you hear me? Do you hear me, Lloyd?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
This network is going on for already about 10 years, all along the East African coast. It goes from Mozambique up to Kenya, and they have every year particular dates where everybody's out of the tourism industry along the coast, including Chumba Island, to monitor whale movement. And I think quite a big data set already. The key person is Matt Richmond. I'm very happy to put you in touch with him. Yeah,
please do, sir. Thank you very much.
Ruan can give you my email, and then I put you in touch. No worries. Thank you very much. Sorry for my problems with the video. Don't know what's happening. I can't put it on.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year. I hope all's well.
Same to you. Same to everybody.
Thank you.
There's also a question from Rios Davids. Lloyd, do you supervise students?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you supervise students?
I think Deborah will be doing more of that than me, but we don't, because we're not attached to the university, but there are supervisors there, and we'll take them under our wing, and they can do research on our vessels, and then be supervised with somebody in the area. We've got a very good ocean sciences campus and geology department here, so we will be able to sort something with them.
Fantastic. If you can put them in touch with the relevant people, that would be great. Thank you, Ruan. Are we seeing any other questions at the moment?
No.
Peter Mills is also offering his help, his assistance.
Yes, so the Peters will share all of this information with you, Lloyd, the entire chat section so that you can see everywhere. I have August. There's a question from Tara McKenney. Have orcas always attacked great whites or only since their prey have diminished?
They have always attacked great whites. And there's records from islands of California, the Farallon Islands, as well as in Australia. But it normally doesn't make up such a big percentage of their diet. So they will take them sort of on the odd occasion. But the two that we have in South Africa, this port and starboard that I spoke about, they specialize in white sharks. And when they take out a white shark, the others get such a fright that they flee the area. I mean, one of them got such a skrik in Gansbaai that it went all the way to Perth in Western Australia. I mean, that's a big fright. It just disappeared. And those False Bay had 3 operations, white shark cage diving, and Gansbaai had 8. And not one of those operations is running today. And you're talking about multi-million rand, operations there that have just had to close down. And shark cage diving, you may look at it and think that's not natural, that's not good, but if you want to save something, you've got to know it and you've got to understand it. And the amount of good science that has come out of the shark cage diving fraternity is huge. And I really don't think we would be sort of that far progressed if it wasn't for that. And it's also for the public. It's to dispel this myth that these animals are killers and I don't know what else people call them, that they're actually an essential part of the whole food chain and that we need them. It was only after we started doing shark cage diving that we really got a handle on these guys. And then we noticed in our harbor that there were 2 boats that were doing what's called shark longlining. So they set these cables a couple of kilometers long, and they've got these baited hooks on them, and they catch just about every flippin' shark in the area. Sharks are easy to catch. So they winch these things on board, all right? They gut them, heads go back, guts go back. The fins all go to the east for shark fin soup, which has got no nutritional value. It's just the consistency of it. And all the meat is sent to Australia. And I was there in 2019. It's called Flake and Chips. Flake is South African shark. And you go to Australia, all their shark species are protected. They don't cut up and sell their sharks. So here we are, short-term, exporting shark meat to Australia. So we kicked up such a fuss here. We started a petition. We got 33,000 signatories. We had some public meetings. We had all sorts of things, and we presented it to the minister. And the minister stopped the whole fishery and did a big investigation with 5 scientists, a couple of admin people. And they've since put a whole lot of more regulations, like slot limits, the size of the sharks, having observers on board. Seasonals, it's all that kind of stuff, and so we kind of got it stopped, which was absolutely wonderful. So these public campaigns, you actually can get somewhere, but you've got to stick to your guns, and you've got to have a lot of energy, but you can get there. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, those ones specialize, and the other ones will take occasion. Killer whales all over the world eat different things. The ones in Australia and New Zealand, they only eat stingrays. All right. The ones up in Canada, the resident ones, they only eat certain kinds of salmon. The ones of Japan eat squid. Our ones, we've got the really renegades. They eat mammals. They eat any mammals. They'll eat, sharks, seals, dolphins, whales, just about anything. So, yeah. Very varied diet.
Thank you, Lloyd. I see Amina's hand is up. Amina, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks, Johan. Hey, Lloyd, how are you?
Hey, Amina, I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm good. Sorry I dropped in a bit late, but either way, I have a bit of a general question. I don't know exactly when it happened that Algoa Bay became part of the bigger Addo Elephant Park, I think it's actually called.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. When did this happen?
This happened in 2018.
Okay, so what I would be interested to know is what changes did result from this? Did any responsibilities or authorities change in that context? What did this change bring about for Algoa Bay and conservation?
Okay, so the whole seaward part of the Addo National Park has become what is known as a marine protected area. So all the way from the port of Kucha, which is the big industrial port, all the way from there, going out to sea for about 10 kilometers, and all the way down the eastern side of the bay for about 70 kilometers, has become a marine protected area or a no-take zone. So no fishing boat may operate in that area. Nothing may be removed. No private fishermen, no private people, nobody may actually go in there and remove anything. So the whole idea with a protected area like this is it protects your breeding stock of fish. So your reef fish, which don't move around, they stay in one area. They're the first ones to go when they fished, and they struggle to kind of replenish themselves. So these marine protected areas offer a kind of site for the breeding stock, and obviously the spawn from there would then populate a whole lot of other reefs in areas that are fished. But it keeps the recruitment coming, keeps the new ones coming out. So unfortunately, just after it was declared, we had a year or so, and then we went into COVID, and research took a bit of a hammering. So I think we're only going to be sort of able to tell within the next couple of years how effective this whole big marine protected area is going to be. And, we're still a long way off what we've promised. We've promised 20% marine protected areas, and I think we're only on about 5% now. So we've got a long way to go, but it was better than the 1% that we had before this Operation Pakisa, which means hurry up, and it's all to do with the blue economy. So we are moving in the right direction, I think.
So if I could just ask for some clarification here. So the whole chocker industry is finished then, more or less, in Algoa Bay, or do I misunderstand that?
Okay, the chocker industry she's referring to is the squid industry. The squid industry operates outside of the marine protected area. So the squid, while there are some that spawn within the marine protected area, the majority of them are outside of that. But I must just say that the squid fishery is one of the success stories of the fishing industry, because for a start, there's no bycatch. Squid is caught on a line, on a hand line. So they don't catch penguins, they don't catch dolphins, they don't catch anything that they're not supposed to catch. And if they do, they can release it. Okay, so no bycatch. There's about 3 or 4 closed seasons every year where the people are not allowed to fish. So it's very well monitored. And I mean, one year that they weren't catching, they closed down for 18 months. So, and in the off season, they allow certain boats to actually fish, and that squid is sold to cover the research costs for the next year. So I think it's if the rest of the fishing industry could follow suit, I mean, bottom trawls are it just shouldn't be allowed. It's so destructive. whereas this is a much better option.
Yeah, and surely a lot of people depend on this business. So it's great that that is still going on, because, as you say, it's still a very sustainable way of fishing. And
definitely.
this bunkering is then also going outside of this area.
It's going outside of the area, Amina, but the problem with the bunkering is that the spills, if there's any spills, and we've had 3 recorded spills, they always say it's less than 300 liters, because that's after 300 it becomes a bit more of a kind of a thing, and there's been 5 unrecorded ones. So that spilt oil can go into the marine protected area, and it does go into the marine protected area. You know, the sort of all the different poisons and stuff from that heavy furnace oil, you know, obviously that gets washed into the sea. That must be building up in the food chains. I mean, surely it has to be. So, and that obviously flows into the marine protected area. So we're battling with this whole thing at the moment, and it's very difficult to take on, because there's massive amounts of money at stake here, which is always the case. You know, if you look at tourism is the answer to sustainability. Tourism generates 9 billion rand in the metro, and it employs 45,000 people. All right, 9 billion, 45,000 people, more than half of which are involved in the marine, beaches, coastal, that kind of stuff. The whole bunkering story employs, when this was a few years back when we had the stat, 45 people. And all that money is changing hands offshore. It's not coming into the country. It's going offshore. A little bit, percentage of that is going to some wealthy businessman in Johannesburg, which obviously, you know, that we have state capture in this country. And while there's state capture is on the go, there's no ways that they're going to kill this cash cow. That money keeps on coming in, and there's no work being done. There's no input from their side. It's just siphoning money off. So we really got our hands full. And you know, the World Cetacean Alliance was one of the things we had to sort out before we were certified as a whale heritage site. We actually had to go in and do more work on the bunkering, which we did. In fact, we actually they wanted to issue more licenses for bunkering. There's 2 at the moment. They wanted to issue another 4 licenses, and they ignored everybody's reports, and they said, right, on the 1st of April last year, we're issuing more licenses. We served papers on them on the 28th of March, and on the 1st of April, they rescinded their decision, and they are not allowed to issue any more until a risk assessment has been completed, which will be done by June this year. So we're getting somewhere at last.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Amina. Amina, by the way, she used to be a skipper for Raggy Charters, and she headed off to Kenya, and she helped host me when I came and did the presentation there in a place called Wasini Island, right in the southern part of Kenya. And absolutely, what a beautiful place. You've got this island with amazing baobabs on. You've got the humpback whales going in and out the channel. Amina, a good place for a whale heritage site, don't you think?
It is. Let's work on it.
Get your ass into gear.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Amina.
I would just like to mention that Amina is part of the lineup of speakers in February, and she will be sharing some of the small treasures on Wasini Island, and not so much focusing on the large megafauna, but looking at the overlooked, and hopefully inspiring a lot of citizen science to do the same. Lastly, Lloyd, Peter Mills is worried about the wave behind you. Where is that wave, and where did you photograph it? What's happening there?
Well, if I must tell you the truth, it's not my computer because my laptop isn't up to this. So I had to borrow Deborah's. So I wouldn't know. But I've got the seat. If I open my window, I'm right on the seat. So I can throw a stone into it. I can watch the whales come past here. And if I get into my Land Cruiser and I drive into town, by the time I'm in my boat, loaded my passengers, I can catch the whales at Cape Recife coming around the point. So it's quite a handy lookout. Also, when the film crews are here, the BBC guys always stay here. And when I'm telling them, listen, the sea is terrible, you can't go out, and they start complaining, I say, well, have a look out there. And they kind of get it, you know. So yeah, very handy vantage point.
Fantastic. So everyone, I think we are through with all the questions. I don't see any new questions. We are down to 29 people, and we've kept Lloyd here for almost 2 hours now. So
Yes.
Lloyd, I think we're going to thank you and thank everybody in the community for being part of it this evening, joining us again after the holiday season. A very happy 2023 to all of you, and may your conservation enthusiasm continue in this year. Thank you very much, everybody. We look forward to seeing you next week when we will be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Battlers Voluntary Flying Group for Conservation.